Hello and welcome to another HTML and CSS tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to create our first full web page layout. So we're going to use the information that we've learned from the previous tutorials and a little bit of extra information that we'll learn in this tutorial to make our own website layout. Okay, so we're going to add a header, we're going to add a sidebar menu, and we're going to add the content area of the web page where our text and images can go, and also a footer to the web page. Okay, so I have my index.html homepage here, and I'm referencing a CSS file or an external style sheet called theme.css, which is in my resources folder, and this is the theme.css file here, which is empty at the moment. So in the body section of the web page, I'm going to start putting in some divs, and then inside those divs I'm going to put in my content. So I'm going to start with a header, which will be obviously at the top of the web page, and then I'll start with a navigation bar on the left side, and then the content section in the middle, and a footer down the bottom. Okay, so to start with, for the header I need to create a div. And I'm going to, because there's only going to be one header in my web page, I'm going to give it an ID, which is going to be called header. And inside this div, I'm going to have a heading, and this can just be the name of your website, or you could put in like the logo of your website. So you could put an image in here for the logo of the website. But I'm just going to put in my website because I don't have a name for this new website yet. And then I'm going to close off that div. Oops. Okay, so I've got, just make a little bit of extra room here, I've got a div with an ID of header, and inside that div there's just a heading for the website that says my website. Okay, now I haven't created the CSS style yet for this div, but I'm going to come back to that in just a couple of minutes. So the next thing to do is to create a div for the navigation bar, the sidebar, which will be called nav. And then inside here we're going to have the links for the different pages on the website. So we can add some URL links here. So I don't actually have these pages created yet, so I'm just going to put hashtag in for the URL instead of the actual file name, and that can just be filled in later. So a hashtag, when this link is clicked on, basically it won't take the user anywhere, they'll just stay on the same page. So the first link can be home for the home page, and then we'll add a line break here so that the next link is on the next line down. And in the CSS styling we're going to add some spacing between these lines as well. So we'll add another link here without a URL yet. We'll just use this hashtag as a placeholder for the URL. And this page is going to be called about, and we'll add another line break. We'll add a few more pages just to fill up this menu. Say products, could be a business website. Another URL, another link, support, and lastly, we'll add a contact us page. Okay, so for your website, you'd want to replace these hashtags with other things. So for example, about.html or products.html. But I'll just leave hashtags there at the moment, for the moment, as placeholders. Okay, and that'll be the end of the navigation menu, so we can close off that div, end that div, and start another one. And this div will have an ID of section. Okay, this is going to be the main content area for the web page. And it's going to start with a heading saying something like welcome to my website. Make it a H2 size heading, so it's a little bit smaller than the main heading. And underneath that we'll add a paragraph, and we'll just put in some random text here. So the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Okay, we've got every letter in the alphabet there. And we'll copy that a few times just to fill up some space on the web page. Have that 5 times. Close that paragraph, and we might copy that paragraph. So we've got 2 paragraphs there, just filling up the web page a little bit with some information. All right, we'll close off that section div, and then we'll add one more div with an ID of footer. So this will be at the bottom of the web page. And inside that footer, you can add your information there, like, for example, copyright, blah, 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 2015, and something else random that you might want to put in the bottom there. And we won't bother putting that in the paragraph. We can just leave that there as text and close that div off. All right, and then the end of the body section there. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 divs here. So we've got a header div, a nav div or navigation bar, a section div for the main content of our page, and then a footer div where we can add some random information down the bottom. All right, so we'll save that, and we can open this in Chrome, and that's what it looks like. Not very exciting, but what we want to do is we want to turn this web page website name or title into a header. So we want to have a header up the top here of a nice color, and then this menu is going to be on the left side. On the left side, another different color. This content will be over here in the middle, or on the right hand side of the nav bar. So it's going to be on the right hand side of the nav bar, and then this little bit of information down here will be in a footer at the bottom of the page. Okay, so we're going to add some colors for our divs, and we're going to organize the layout of this web page using CSS in an external style sheet. So to start with, we need to create a CSS style for the header. All right, so this div has an ID of header, which means we need to start with a hashtag for our div ID, so element ID, which is called header. And this header is going to have a background color. It's going to be, I'll go with a blue. So I've already got the color code, or the hexadecimal color code for this, which is 0C60CE. All right, so it's going to be a nice dark blue color. And then the color of the text will be white. Okay, so FF is the color code for that. And I'm going to align the text to the center of this div. Okay, so the text will be in the middle of this div. And lastly, I'm going to add some padding around the text, or around the div, sorry. So padding of 5 pixels padding around the content inside this div. Okay, we'll save that, and we can go and refresh this page, and there we go. So we have our nice header here. It's a nice dark blue color, and the text inside that header is now white. All right, now we need to add the CSS styling for the navbar. Okay, so we can go ahead and add that. So hashtag nav, because the ID of this div was nav. And then inside that, we're going to add a line height. So remember I said we'll add some spacing between each link on the menu. So we can do that by specifying the line height. I'm going to set that to 25 pixels. Background color of this navbar div will be a lighter shade of blue. 7D9DC7 is the color code that I'll use for that. Remember, you can just search Google for websites that give you hexadecimal color codes, but there's a good one called HTML-color-codes.info, and that gives you all the different color codes that you can use on your web pages. So the div will set a height to begin with. You can change this later. And the width of this navbar is going to be 150 pixels, so not too wide, but enough room for the links to fit in. And then, this is something new, we're going to use the float property. So basically with the float property, we can have an element on our web page, and we can make that element, we can push it to the left or the right. So this navbar can be pushed to the left of the web page, so that other elements, such as the content section, can wrap around it. So float property, basically an element can be pushed to the left or the right, and that lets other elements wrap around it. It's often used with images, and in this example, we're going to use it with a div layout, so it's also used with them. So the float property will be set to left. So the navbar is going to be on the left-hand side of the web page, and then that will allow the section div to wrap around it on the right-hand side. Okay, and then lastly for this one, we'll have padding set to 5 pixels. All right, now we'll go and check out, I'll save that and go and check out what's happened there. There we go. So now we've got a lighter shade of blue here for our navbar. And we've got all the links there as well for different pages on this website. And now the content section of the web page is on the right hand side. So because we use float left, so the value we had for the float property of the nav div was set to left, it meant that the other content on the web page is now wrapped around it. So it's on the right hand side. But we need to fix that up because you can see that with this text here, there's absolutely no gap here between the content and between the content and the menu or the navbar. So we need to add a little bit of space there. We can also style the fonts on this web page, the size, the color, but I'll leave that up to you to fiddle around with that because we've already learned how to change the fonts and colors and sizes in previous tutorials. So we won't spend any time doing that for this one. But we will add a little bit of padding and we'll also get the section to float to the left as well. So let's see what happens in a sec. So we'll use the section ID for the main content of our web page, and we'll set the width to 500 pixels. So there's plenty of room there for text, but so it's not taking up the entire page from left to right. And we'll set the float to left as well. So when we set float to left, and we've got this in order, we've got the navbar here, we've got the section div here, and it's the same on the web page, on our HTML page. When we set the float to the left here, it's not going to go to the left of our navbar. It'll actually be on the right hand side of the navbar, but it will allow other content to wrap on the other side, the right hand side of this section div, which we won't be doing. But if you wanted to add another sidebar on the right hand side of your web page, you could do that as well. So we'll set float to left for the section div, and padding, which we were just talking about, we need to add some padding there, and we'll make that 10 pixels. So we can save that and go back, and now there's some padding there. All right, and you'll see that because we set float to left, it meant that other content, so the footer, can now wrap around it on this side, which we don't want. We want the footer obviously to be down the bottom, and we're going to make that happen in a minute. But because we've set float to left, it means that we can have other stuff over here. So we could add another column of content, or we could add a sidebar on the right hand side of our web page. All right, so now the last thing that we need to do is just specify the CSS rules for the footer ID. Okay, so background color will be the same as our header. So we can go ahead and copy and paste that. All right, so it's going to be that dark blue again. Text color, again, that's going to be white. And we're going to work with a new property here called clear. And basically the clear property, it can be set to none, left, right. It could be set to both, or inherent, meaning it inherits from the value from the parent element. So basically what this means, the clear property, it can specify which side or which sides of an element that other floating elements are allowed to be. So both, when we set this to both, which we will, what that means is that no floating divs can be to the left or to the right of this div. So at the moment, we do have a div to the left of the footer div. Okay, so this is our footer here, and this is the section div here. And at the moment, the section div is on the left of the footer div, but we want the footer down the bottom here. We don't want anything to its left, and we don't want anything to its right. We want it to be on its own down here on the bottom. Okay, so we can use clear and both, so that basically that will tell the web page, and will tell the browser that no floating divs can be to the left or the right of this div. All right, so we'll save that. Well, actually, first we'll just get the text to align to the center, and we'll also add some padding like we did with the header. Okay, and the padding will be 5 pixels, so it'll be the same. Okay, now we can save that, and we can go back and refresh, and there we go. So the footer is now at the bottom of the web page. Okay, so there's no divs to the left and there's no divs to the right. There's also a little bit of padding, but we could add a little bit more padding to that. We could change that to 10 pixels. Refresh. We might even want to add some more there, just so the footer stands out just a little bit more. There we go. I think that looks a bit better. Okay, so there we have it. We have our header here with the title of the web page, or the name of the website in white text, and we could easily replace that with a logo, or we could have our logo up here in the top left corner and something else over here. We have our navbar on the left here. We have the content section in over here in the middle. We could fiddle around with that as well. We could make the text take up a little bit more room, or we could have some images over here. And then down the bottom we have our footer, which is dark blue and has white text as well. Now at the moment the navbar on the left doesn't really look all that attractive, but you can add a little bit more CSS to style this. So we could add some different effects. For example, when you move the mouse over the links, the background color could change a little bit, so we could have some different mouse over effects there. And we could also make it so that rather than just having a text link, the link isn't an actual button, so the link is taking up a little bit more room. Or we could use images for the buttons as well. So there's a little bit more work to be done there, but this is a basic layout that we can achieve in not a very long amount of time with CSS and HTML. The other couple of ways that we can create a layout is using just HTML5 code, and also we can use tables as well, which we'll look at soon. So there'll be more tutorials on this. There'll be more tutorials on CSS and HTML5, setting up tables, adding some more styling, and all of that. So keep watching, and thanks for watching.